When I told you all that I thought he was being framed, that his accusers were in it for the money, and then bet my mustache that he would be acquitted, I got more hate mail than on any issue ever except immigration. But he's free. I still have my mustache, and the lynch mob on the other side of that verdict quickly changed the subject. I was alone in 2005 in believing that he was being framed. I thought that that complainant was recruited by the same lawyer who got the 1993 settlement, by the same psychologist on the 1993 team. She was herself a convicted welfare cheat. Yep. I think the whole thing, and that he would go for a 13-year-old cancer patient when he had the world.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting.
I came to the realization that there was a reason why I was there in '93. God gave Michael Jackson something he didn't give his accuser, and that was a witness. And I literally witnessed them set Michael up. And I will honestly tell you, if it wasn't for the book, no one would have ever known what happened in '93.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting.
The book tells about all the characters that were involved in '93. And I don't know if you guys remember Anthony Pellicano. Yeah. Anthony was the private investigator. Anthony's in prison right now. And it was so ironic that Anthony Pellicano went to prison the same month that the district attorney finally decided to go on and indict Michael. He wanted to make sure he was out of the way because Anthony Pellicano is really the one that dug up all the facts about the '93 case. Anthony Pellicano did not want any part of the case anymore. And that's when he bowed out, the attorney bowed out. But he was the one that my mom called that we went and talked to about the case. And while we were in there talking to him about the information that I had, he was so glad that we came forward. And he said my mom had the courage to come forward. He had a beautifully autographed picture of Michael Jackson hanging on his wall. He had a lot of high-profile clients. And it's quite possible that the charge that he's in jail for is not his own. But I believe if you really look behind the surface, it was just too much of a coincidence that he was put in jail the same month that Tom Sneddon launched a charge against Michael again.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting.
They made everything to turn the public against me. This is all complete conspiracy. You have to know that.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting.
Because he was very instrumental in '93 in digging up all the facts. He even went and talked to the boy, had a meeting with the boy, asked the boy face to face, had Michael ever done anything? And Anthony Pellicano, he was an Italian, they call him kind of like a mobster kind of guy, but you know, they may be of that mentality, but they're very family orientated. Anthony Pellicano would not have ever taken on representing Michael if he had a clue that Michael was possibly guilty of harming a child. So before he even said yes to taking on the case, he went and talked to the boy, and he asked the boy, and he was very gentle with him. You know, he's a very smooth guy. And he said he asked the boy, did Michael do anything inappropriate? Anything? Has he ever touched you in any? And he said the boy denied everything. Said he never did anything inappropriate. And it was at that point that he decided to take on the case.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something.
They first came at us they wanted $20 million from Michael Jackson. And they were, the father had a movie interest. He wanted to be a screenwriter, but the father found out that the most money is made when you're the executive producer. And he wanted the next movie to be the executive producer. So he saw that Michael had a friendship with his son, and not just the son. This has come out at trial that Michael was a friend to that whole family. The mom, the daughter. He didn't take that son anywhere that family was not there. You know, it's just that the boy wanted to, you know, the mom had a daughter, everything she did with the daughter, so it was Michael and the son were like, you know, he was kind of like striking a balance in that family, giving the boy a father figure to relate to. And when he didn't pay the money and he refused to, you know, to be a victim of of the extortion attempt, when he didn't pay the money, the father did just what he said he was going to do. He said, I'm going to destroy you. He said, if I don't get what I want, I'm moving according to a plan. Anthony Pellicano got hold of a tape-recorded conversation where he was verbally saying this to another person, I'm going to destroy him if I don't get what I want. And then the stepfather actually said, well, how's that going to help your son? He said, I don't care about that. You know, it was only about the money. And then from being on the inside, you know, I talk about there was a court hearing, a custody hearing. A lot of people didn't know that, where the father had the child, the mom, and wouldn't return him, and the mother wanted the child back, so she took him to court. She got an ex-parte hearing. They went to court. The father had been negotiating with Michael for the $20 million like about 3 weeks, almost a month prior to that hearing, so the knowledge was already there. But when they went to court, and they even filed papers, they filed rebuttal papers. When they filed those rebuttal papers, I remember typing, there was no mention in those papers about there was even a suspicion that Michael was molesting the child was at risk or anything. They had already planned that that was how they were going to report it, because none of them could pass the character test. They wanted, I typed the letter, I was the one that typed the letter where the letter was telling the father how to report child molestation or child abuse by using a third party. There's a chapter in here called the third party witness.
I said you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. I said you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting.
The media has been very clever in disassociating him from the black community, but when you go and see what he's been doing behind the scenes that he's never wanted any credit for, he's our biggest supporter from Africa, of our mother country, Africa. He's the ‑1 biggest supporter of our black colleges, always has been. He's never wanted any credit for this, you know. And I said, well, if that's not black, I don't know what is.
Let's advance the story here.
Okay.
You're watching all of this this week, okay? And you're seeing all the big-time anchors and journalists go out there, and they're basically glorifying Michael Jackson. They didn't glorify him, as you well know, when he was acquitted on the criminal charges. So how did you process that?
All right, that's an excellent question, because I did go through a whole you know, kind of balancing act in my mind. I said, I think that this is a nice event they're staging here, but where were all of these famous people in the period between 2003 and 2005? I didn't see Brooke Shields. I didn't see, and I thought she was adorable and sincere and loving during the performance. I didn't see any of these religious people. I didn't see any of these performers. Michael Jackson was essentially in exile after he was accused. People wouldn't go near him with a stick.
But how about the journalists, though? I mean, they all descend, and now he's the greatest guy, and these are the same people who are hammering him.
There were journalists, and I had to be amused when I saw who the Access Hollywood type shows, the Entertainment Tonight type shows, anointed as their Michael Jackson experts. All of them saying, oh, woe is me, the great artist is gone, the king is dead, long live the king, and all the rest of it. These are the same people who made a career of saying Michael Jackson was a pervert, Michael Jackson was a sicko.
You want to name any names there?
Why should I? I mean, what's the point? They know who they are, and you know, ladies and gentlemen, who they were. You heard them. You remember back 4 years ago, they hated Michael Jackson, and now they extol his virtue as if he were the next comer.
I said you wanna be starting something.